previous video, I said that I felt that Steve G was pushing a lot of information out to the mainstream and the press and to other creators as a way to use it as leverage so that he could take it to the police and try and get some kind of information from them regarding the case. And a lot of people have asked, well, do you think he was knowingly pushing out information? And I went back to the messages. And here's the thing. No, I don't think he was knowingly pushing out the messages. I think everything that came his way, he felt that there was some kind of merit to it. And I picked up on something that I didn't pick up on the first time, which was he says in the message that he had an FBI contact. I think his FBI contact is the person who wrote this letter, the one that or this text message or whatever. And like I said, I think this is fake. So this just has me believing or suspecting that all this stuff that Steve has been putting out there, 90% of it isn't true. And the trick is, how do we tell the difference between what's true and what isn't? I'm going to go through a list of like what I think is true and what I think isn't, coming from, based on those messages and just stuff that's been out in the press. And the first one I'm going to start with is the grand jury leak. I don't think there was ever a grand jury leak, because the things that were mentioned in the grand jury leak, right? Like the cast data and the roommates texting and the dog barking for, however long. These are all things we knew. These were all things that were already mentioned in the PCA. And remember how I said a few weeks ago when I posted something from, somebody said that they were friends with Hunter or something, like Hunter Johnson. And that I said, you have to pay attention to the story and try to recall if the things that they're saying are these things that you've already heard before, and are they just taking various things and creating a narrative? And I think that's what happened here with the grand jury. We know the dog was barking. We know about the cast data. We know the roommates were texting. That's how they established a timeline, by the data from their phone. There was just a little bit of detail added into this, so to make it more believable. I don't think the grand jury leak is real. I think that's one of the, but I do think Steve believed he was talking to somebody from the grand jury. Now, something that I do think is real is I think Bethany saw somebody. I think Bethany saw somebody around the house around the time of the murders. Steve does say in those messages that he was told that the suspect bought one of those Dickies overall suits. The kind of suit he was talking about, the kind of suit that somebody would need to protect themselves, is not $49.99, and that's the price that was printed in the Bloom article. They're upwards of $89 to $129. So like I said, he could be using a gift card from Nana. I don't know, but $49.99 won't even cover what he's looking for. So I do think that he had something on, and I think he took it off outside the house, and I think Bethany could have seen that. And to be clear, that didn't come out in the grand jury. That came out long before the grand jury was even held. But I do think there's some truth to that, and like I've said, I think whatever she saw might contradict what Dylan said. But remember, Steve did say something interesting here in this message, that they were sort of conflating two different events. So it could be that whoever Bethany saw wasn't even related to the murders. We don't know. Something I think is a lie, or that isn't true. Not a lie. That's not the right word to use. I don't think Ethan was found in the doorway. I don't think Ethan was blocking the door. I don't think Ethan's throat was slit. These were all things that News Nation reported, that they heard from an anonymous source. I don't think any of that is true. Now, whether or not Steve believed it was true, or if it was just like a game of telephone where by the time it got to him, it was Ethan and not Xana, I don't know. I happen to believe somebody that door was blocked somehow, whether it was locked, whether there was a body in front of it, I don't know. But I do believe that somebody was in front of that door and they needed help getting in there. So while I don't think it was Ethan, I do think it could be Xana. You know, if you look at this picture here of the mattress that they took out of the house, that arm span, the barrel of the chest, that looks male. So it looks like not only was Ethan in bed but that he was probably pinned in bed while it was happening. So I don't think it was Ethan covering the door. And remember, Steve did say that Hunter found Ethan. Ethan and Xander were in the room at the same time. Why wouldn't he have found both of them? Which leads me to believe Ethan was in a place that wasn't visible when you first walked into the room. I don't believe that the suspect bought a knife from Amazon. Given what this current suspect knows, in regards to technology and technological forensics, I think he would know better than to leave a trail, even if he was using somebody else's device, even if he was using somebody else's account. I just think that he was so careful about stuff like this. So no, I don't think he ever bought a knife on Amazon. Something I do think is true: the informant. And it might not be in the form of an informant. Maybe that's the wrong word. I do think that there was somebody, a witness, who can place the suspect at the house. And I do happen to think it's the DoorDash driver, strictly because they were there at the same time. Could have been somebody else, could have been somebody look out their window, who knows. But I do think that there is somebody that has some information that makes the prosecution feel very confident that who is the current suspect is the suspect. I don't think that one of the roommates texted, "I think someone killed them." I think that was an embellishment by this alleged grand jury member and given to Steve. I don't think that happened. Something that's been put out there since day one is somebody passed out after 911 was called or after the bodies were found, and they passed out in front of the house. I don't believe that. You know, the word unconscious was used so many times. Well, I think someone could have been hyperventilating and freaking out. I don't know that I believe somebody passed out in front of the house. See, I remember reading that in a comment on Instagram. It was like an entire story told about what they saw, standing out in front of the house. And I think Steve might have seen that too, and that's where that came from. I don't think there's any truth to it. Now, with that all said, I want to talk about the search warrants for a second. Specifically, some items that were in the search warrant that I'm curious about. And the first one is goggles. What kind of goggles? These goggles were allegedly found in the Hyundai Elantra along with swabs. Now, I think we all assumed that when we heard swabs, that meant swabs that they took, and it could very well be the case. But what if they're not? Why would this guy have swabs in his car? And I know he was a criminology student, I get it. But swabs and goggles? They don't say if he was a skier. They don't say that he was a swimmer. What were the goggles for? And what kind of goggles? What are we talking about here? Are they military issued, like, night vision goggles? Because I know military people who have those goggles. What kind of goggles? And why were they in his car? And why were the swabs in his car? Like, I don't know if I'm misinterpreting that, but it's sounding to me like there were swabs found in his car. What's also interesting, if we're talking about the search warrants, is how they specify, when they go into the properties or the locations, the things that they're looking for. When they were going into his apartment, they specified, and this could be a cut and paste job, I don't know, but they said that some of the things that investigators should be looking for are knives or sheaths. Now, if they already had the sheath, why are they looking for more sheaths? And this is the main reason why I think that a sheath for a different knife was used. So, I don't know. That's what that makes me wonder. I want to hear from you guys. What do you think the goggles are about? Am I misinterpreting the swabs? And is this wording in the warrant? Am I just reading too much into it? Is it a cut and paste job? Or do you think they think that a completely different knife was used other than a K-bar. And tell me what you think is true and false and why. Like what information that Steve's put out there or that's been put out there. What do you think is true and what do you think is false? Leave it in the comments.